Hello, my dear dreamers. This is Serene Slumber Tales, and tonight I invite you to curl up in your warmest blanket, rest your head upon a soft pillow, and allow your imagination to drift into the mists of history. Together, we will step quietly into the ancient world of A Song of Ice and Fire and uncover the story of Old Valyria, the land of dragonriders, strange magics, and a dynasty that would one day reshape the Seven Kingdoms. Take a slow, deep breath in and exhale gently. Imagine the room around you fading into a gentle twilight glow, and picture yourself opening a weathered scroll lit by candlelight. Each word upon its parchment leads us deeper into a tale long lost in the ashes of fire and shadow. Let us begin by anchoring ourselves. Close your eyes and picture, not just briefly, but with the kind of attention that lingers, the great map of Westeros and Essos unfurled across an old oak table. The table itself is heavy, ancient, its surface scarred with the nicks of countless knives. The burn of candles long since melted down, and the faint ring marks of goblets set down in forgotten councils. Yet despite the wood's weariness, it holds the map reverently, as if both table and vellum know their destinies are entwined. The parchment lies smooth beneath your fingertips, cool, almost damp with the weight of years. Though here and there time has nibbled at its edges, leaving delicate frays, small cracks spread like veins where the vellum has grown brittle, yet the artistry remains intact. The ink, though faded from centuries of sun and touch, still tells its story. The coastlines curve with the elegance of a leaf's veins, fragile yet deliberate, guiding the eye to rivers, mountains, bays, and borders that separate kingdoms, empires, and forgotten realms. Let your gaze, real or imagined, drift to the far west, where the land known as Westeros stretches long and narrow, cradled between restless seas. Its spine is etched with mountains that rise like a jagged backbone, peaks stabbing skyward, defiant and cold. Fingers of rock thrust into the sunset sea, as if the land itself is reaching toward a horizon it can never grasp. The Seven Kingdoms lie upon this western shore, though, of course, kingdoms are but names, and the map knows nothing of the blood shed for them. The rivers, the forests, the hills, they remain unmoved by men's claims, by the lines inked across their surfaces. Yet even so, the map maker has drawn them with a reverence that makes them feel alive, as though the parchment itself remembers their history. Now allow your thoughts to travel eastward, across the narrow sea, into the vast continent of Essos. The shift in scale is immediate, almost overwhelming. Where Westeros feels long and narrow, Essos sprawls with a majesty that defies measurement. It is so vast, in fact, that when you look at it, your breath falters. The eye cannot take in its enormity all at once. Its steppes unroll like endless ribbons of grass. Its deserts blaze with golden sand that swallows whole caravans, and its rivers pulse like arteries, feeding cities whose names ring with legend. Horizons blur into distance upon distance until imagination strains to keep pace. And even then, you sense what the map cannot show, the mystery of its eastern edges, where ink runs out, where the parchment fades into uncharted nothing. What lies beyond? Sailors and dreamers tell their tales, but on this map, silence reigns. Trace your finger downward now to the southern curve of Essos, where waters gather in turmoil. Here the seas churn, colliding in restless fury. Steam rises from the surface, as though the earth itself breathes beneath the waves. It curls like morning mist, soft yet unsettling, shrouding the view and hinting at dangers unseen. This is the Valyrian Peninsula, narrow yet mighty, thrusting out into the sea like a sword forged by gods. It is cradled on either side by the smoking sea and the jade gates, waters that do not rest. They hiss and gnash against blackened cliffs, striking sparks that no eye can see, but every heart can feel. The rocks are sharp here, obsidian dark and slick with brine. Legends say the waters still boil, poisoned by the memory of fire and ash. They whisper that the doom, the cataclysm that shattered an empire, lingers still, woven into the tides, staining the salt with shadows of sorrow. Yet tonight, within your mind's conjuring, let those waters soften. Let the restless hiss fall silent, and imagine instead the gentlest lapping of waves, their rhythm steady, almost like a lullaby. Hear the faint suck and pull as water kisses stone, the sound carrying on the breeze like the echo of a heartbeat. Breathe it in, the sharp tang of salt, the heavy curl of smoke, and beneath it all, something faintly metallic, something that reminds you, with a shiver you cannot quite name, of blood. Not fresh blood, but old blood dried into the cracks of memory, the kind that never washes away no matter how many storms pass. Now pause and notice yourself in this vision. Feel the shift in your breath, the subtle way your chest rises and falls. Inhale slowly, as if your lungs are drinking in that ocean air, mingling salt and smoke, ash and memory. Exhale, and with it, release the weight of the world outside this vision, so that the map and the lands upon it may claim your full attention. You are no longer merely an observer seated at a table. You are there, standing upon the threshold of Old Valyria itself. And what a threshold it is! Before you lies not merely a stretch of rock and water, but a place of paradox, equal parts wonder and terror. The land glimmers faintly, as though it remembers its glory days, when towers of stone and dragonfire brushed the heavens. Yet it also broods, for ruin clings to its soil like a curse. The peninsula is alive with ghosts. In every stone you feel the echo of hammers shaping weapons that bent the world to their wielder's will. In every gust of wind you sense the echo of dragons' wings, their shadows once stretching across the land like banners of living flame. The peninsula itself seems to breathe around you. The cliffs rise steep and watchful, streaked with veins of strange glassy rock. The fields are not green, but grey, pocked with fissures where smoke seeps upward like whispers escaping the underworld. Even when the waves are calm, the ground trembles faintly, a reminder that the doom was not merely an event, but a wound, still raw beneath the surface. And yet, for all its danger, the place calls to you. It hums in your bones, like a half-remembered song from childhood, tugging you closer with promises of knowledge, power, and secrets buried deep. Stand here long enough, and you begin to feel the contradiction that defines Old Valyria. It is ruin and majesty, beauty and horror, past and future braided into one. To step into it is to step into history itself, though history here is no gentle thing. It is jagged, sharp-edged, ready to cut. And yet, as the vision settles more firmly in your mind, you cannot turn away. You are drawn deeper, standing at the threshold of a place that will not be forgotten, a place that refuses to fade into mere parchment and ink. You are on the edge of the known world, yes, but also on the edge of myth, where memory and magic blur. And as you breathe once more, slowly and deliberately, you know this. The shape of the world is not merely geography. It is story. It is memory. It is the weight of places both lost and enduring. And tonight, in this vision, you are not merely tracing a map. You are stepping into it. The Valyrians were not always mighty. That truth, so often forgotten in the blaze of their later glory, lingers like a quiet shadow behind the fire of their empire. Long ago, long before the doom, before dragons soared above 100 banners, they were but humble shepherds tending their flocks upon those smoking, restless hills. Picture it. The land itself is alive, breathing in sighs of ash and steam, the soil cracked with warmth, and vents of smoke curling into the air like grey banners unfurling from the earth. And in the midst of this uneasy landscape, the shepherds lived. Hear it now, the gentle clink of bronze bells tied around the necks of sheep, each note soft, repetitive, steady as a heartbeat. The bleating of ewes drifts faintly across the valleys, echoing in and out of the steam vents. Children chase lambs along the rocky slopes, their laughter swallowed in the hiss of boiling springs. The air smells of sulphur and whetstone, yet to them it is the scent of home. Life was simple. Days passed with the slow rhythm of grazing, of spinning wool, of tending fires beneath the open sky. The Valyrians were content, or at least they thought themselves so. But beneath their feet, deeper than the roots of mountains, something ancient stirred. In caverns hidden under the smoking hills, where the air shimmered with heat and shadows clung to stone, eggs the size of hounds lay waiting. Their shells were strange, smooth yet ridged with veins of iridescence, warm to the touch as though pulsing with life. Some swore they hummed faintly, that if one pressed ear to shell, a rhythm like the beating of a vast heart could be heard. These eggs did not belong to sheep, nor to any beast known to the surface world. They belonged to creatures of fire and fury. They belonged to dragons. Imagine the moment of discovery, a shepherd wandering too far, torchlight flickering against cavern walls. His flock has strayed, bells tinkling faintly in the distance, and then the torchlight catches something more, a glimmer of scales curled in the darkness. The cavern is lit not by fire of man, but by the orange, molten glow radiating from beasts coiled in shadow. The air is hot, suffocating. The shepherd's breath catches. From the blackness comes a sound, low and rumbling, deeper than thunder, yet sharper than any storm. Dragons growling, their voices a promise of power and destruction. To tame such creatures required more than courage. Courage alone could only get a man killed, his bones scorched and scattered. No, the Valyrians needed something greater: knowledge, blood, and sacrifice. The tales whisper of incantations spoken beneath moons that burned red, of rituals carved into the flesh of those who dared approach, of fires stoked with offerings no shepherd would name aloud. Blood sorcery, forbidden and forgotten now, was their key. Through these arts, half prayer, half command, they bent wild creatures of fire to their will, and in bending dragons, they bent the world. Now breathe in deeply. Imagine the rush of wings overhead, a sound like canvas ripping, but louder, sharper, so vast it seems the sky itself is being torn apart. Vast shadows darken the sun as scaled titans lift into the air, their bodies immense, their wingspan blotting the light. The air vibrates with the strength of their wing beats. Fire dances at their teeth, spilling from their jaws in ragged bursts of orange, red, and gold. To see a dragon rise is to feel the earth itself shrink. to know that man's walls and spears are but kindling in the path of flame. For centuries, the Valyrians grew strong on Dragonback. They spread outward from their smoking hills, conquering neighboring valleys, rivers, and plains. Where once they had only flocks, now they had fortresses, mines, and towers carved from stone, blackened by fire. The freehold they built was unlike any kingdom. It was not ruled by one king, nor by a single queen crowned with gold. No, their dominion was shared among noble families known as dragon lords. Each dragon lord family bore its own banners, its own castles of gleaming stone, its own wings of scaled beasts that soared above their lands. Together, they formed a council, 100 seats, each held by a family proud of its ancient blood, each voice raised with ambition and rivalry. In that chamber, decisions were forged as much by flame and pride as by law. But power such as theirs does not grow unchallenged. To the west, across broad plains and deserts, rose the proud and ancient empire of Ghis. The Giscari, as they were known, were not shepherds. They were builders. Their cities were carved in stone, their walls so thick that even time itself seemed to break against them. They worshipped strange gods who demanded sacrifice, and their temples reeked of blood, for every victory was consecrated in crimson. Armies of slaves filled their ranks, drilled into perfect formations, their spears a forest of iron, and behind them the great harpy banners of Ghis loomed high, spreading wings of defiance against all challengers. Between Valyria and Ghis, there was no peace. 5 great wars raged, each more brutal than the last, each spilling across plains and rivers, each ending in ruin for one side or the other. Imagine the clash. The thunder of war drums echoing across the field, the metallic chorus of 1,000 spears striking shields in unison, a sound like iron rain. Picture the marching blocks of slaves moving with the precision of machines, their sandals slapping stone in steady rhythm, their faces blank, eyes resigned. Above it all, slicing through the order of men, comes the scream of dragons. The sky itself tears open as wings beat down, as fire roars from the heavens. Entire battalions vanish in a single breath of flame. Shields melt, spears burn. Stone walls, once thought unbreakable, glow red and crack under the heat, crumbling into smoke and rubble. The cries of the dying mingle with the triumphant shrieks of dragons overhead, until the battlefield becomes not a place of men, but of monsters. One by one, the walls of mighty Ghis fell, toppled by fire and fury. Its harpy banners were torn down, its temples shattered, its people scattered in chains or slaughter. From those ashes, the Valyrian freehold grew. No longer confined to hills and valleys, they now stretched their dominion across much of Essos. Rivers, plains, and cities bent beneath their shadow. Dragons roared above conquered lands, their shadows spreading farther each generation. What had begun with shepherds and sheep bells ended with empires trembling at their approach. And so the freehold rose, not as one man's dream, not as a dynasty of a single crown, but as a dominion of fire, blood, and ambition, shared by 100 families who had mastered the greatest power the world had ever known. Now let us pause. Allow your breathing to slow, as though time itself has softened its grip. Inhale deeply through your nose. Let the air settle in your chest, and then release it in a long, quiet stream. Each breath is a bridge, carrying you not only deeper into imagination, but further back into a world that no longer exists. The Valyrian Freehold is ash now, its towers broken, its people scattered, its name remembered only in ruins and legends. And yet here, in this dream, it is alive once more. You are walking its streets as though you had stepped across centuries. The city glimmers in your mind's eye, bright and terrible. Its towers rise not like the square keeps of Westeros, nor the minarets of distant Essos, but like molten glass frozen mid-motion, twisted upward in shapes that seem to defy both stone and sky. Spirals, arches, and curves stretch toward the heavens, each spire a different vision of ambition solidified into architecture. They are not merely buildings. They are declarations, each one whispering of a people who thought themselves kin to gods. Their surfaces catch the sun and shimmer with colors that shift like oil on water. Black one moment, crimson the next, then flashes of violet as if the stone itself remembers the flames from which it was birthed. The roads beneath your feet are smooth, paved with pale stone veined faintly with silver. They wind in deliberate paths, connecting plazas, markets, temples, and forges like threads in a great tapestry. Along their edges run aqueducts, carved in perfect arcs, carrying clear, cold water down from mountain springs. The water spills into fountains of silver and marble, each one carved into shapes of dragons, lions, stags, or creatures that exist nowhere in nature. The sound of falling water is constant, a music as soft as breath, and in the heat of Valyria, it offers brief moments of coolness. Children laugh as they dart past the fountains, tossing pebbles into the pools, while merchants shade their stalls beneath silk awnings dyed in vivid hues. But always, always, your eye is drawn beyond the streets to the horizon, where mountains smolder, the 14 flames, volcanoes vast and ancient, loom like giants, their peaks crowned with fire and smoke. Their glow never fades, day or night. At dusk they burn red, at dawn they bleed gold, and in the darkness they sear the sky with orange veins. Their molten hearts feed the forges of the Valyrians, and their fury hums in the very bones of the land. The air itself seems alive, shimmering with heat, rippling like cloth caught in wind. And within that air, listen, the steady, relentless music of creation, the rhythmic hammering of smiths echoes from forges, each strike ringing out sharp and true. Sparks burst into the air, fleeting stars in daylight, carried away on the breath of furnaces. The clang of metal, the hiss of quenching, the murmur of artisans at work. It is a chorus, a hymn to craft and fire. For the Valyrians were not only dragon lords, they were makers of wonders. Their craft remains unsolved even in our age, wrapped in mystery. Most coveted of all was their gift of steel, not ordinary steel, but Valyrian steel, black, rippled like flowing water, yet strong enough to pierce armor and sharp enough to shear through flesh with effortless grace. Each blade sang with enchantments, though none living can say what words or rites were whispered into the forging. Light as a feather, balanced to perfection, their edges never dulled, their strength never faltered. Imagine holding such a sword in your hand. Feel the hilt fitted to your palm as though it had waited for you alone. The weight vanishes. The blade becomes not an object, but an extension of your very body, an extra limb of steel and death. And when you swing it, the air itself seems to part willingly, as though the weapon carries authority over the elements. But not all wonders gleamed so brightly. The Valyrians' greatness was not born solely of craft and fire, but of sorcery. blood magic pulsed through their veins like a second lifeblood, woven into their rites, their bonds, their power. Whispers speak of rituals performed in shadowed halls, where veins were cut open and words older than any tongue were spoken over bowls filled not with wine, but with fire. The flames consumed the blood, and in the smoke rose visions, bindings, oaths. Some claim it was through such rites that the Valyrians bound themselves to dragons, not merely as riders and beasts, but as partners of blood and flame. The Dragon Lord's bloodlines, it is said, were entwined with fire itself, passed down from generation to generation, making them kin to the creatures they commanded. Others claim they delved further, deeper, daring to master powers no mortal hand should ever reach. They bent not only beasts, but destinies, weaving shadows and fire into patterns none could decipher. And though their glories remain, so too do the fears that such knowledge was too great, too perilous. Close your eyes and imagine such a rite, a chamber deep in stone, lit by torches that sputter against walls carved with runes. Shadows stretch and bend as cloaked figures circle a great basin of bronze. Their voices rise in unison, a chant that does not echo but instead seems to sink into the very bones of the chamber. The smell is sharp, iron and ash mingled with smoke. One by one, they draw knives across their arms, blood falling into the basin where fire waits. The flames leap, hungry, drinking deep, and in their rising smoke, shapes appear, dragons with wings unfurled, serpents coiling, figures neither man nor beast. Pause here. Take a slow breath, filling your lungs with the imagined heat, holding it until it seems to weigh upon your ribs. Then release it, gently, as if letting go of smoke itself. Even in the safety of imagination, the weight of Valyria's sorcery presses heavily. There is power in it, raw and terrible. It is not gentle magic, not the soft glow of healing, nor the playful flicker of illusion. This is magic that consumes as much as it creates. It can bind blood to flame, but it can also burn the world to ash. And therein lies its allure. The wonders of Valyria were not separate from its sorceries. They were born from them. Every tower that defied gravity, every blade that sang, every dragon that answered a rider's call, all of it was woven from the same threads of knowledge, sacrifice, and fire. Power unmatched, power intoxicating, power that could raise empires and, in the end, destroy them. Among the noble dragon lords of Valyria, whose names shone like fire across the Freehold, there was one family of humbler rank, less famed, less mighty. They were the Targaryens. Their holdings were modest compared to the sprawling palaces and vast armies of other dragon lord houses. Their dragons, though fierce, were fewer, yet in the strange weaving of fate, it was not the greatest or the proudest who would endure, but this lesser house, chosen by dream and by chance to survive when all else was consumed. Among them lived a girl, Daenerys, called the Dreamer. Her gift was not of fire or steel, but of vision. In her sleep she wandered paths no waking eye could see, and in those dreams she beheld horrors yet to come. Fire, ash, towers shattering as though struck by invisible hammers, the 14 flames vomiting molten fury into the sky, the earth splitting wide, devouring whole cities, whole legions, whole histories in a single breath. She saw dragons shriek as the skies turned black, their wings torn by storms of flame. She saw palaces collapse into boiling seas, and proud Valyria dissolve into ruin. At first, her warnings were gentle, soft as the whisper of a daughter to her father. Dreams are easily dismissed, after all, but Danis did not relent. Each vision grew sharper, more desperate, more unbearable. Night after night she wept in terror, speaking of fire that could not be quenched, of a world undone in a single day. And unlike so many others who scoffed at prophecy, her father, Lord Enar Targaryen, listened. He heard his daughter's voice, and against the scorn of his peers, he chose to act. That choice would save his house and alter the fate of kingdoms yet unborn. Close your eyes and picture their flight. The Targaryens, once settled in Valyria's heart, now became exiles. They gathered what they could, books of ancient lore bound in dragonhide, scrolls inked with secrets of steel and flame, treasures of silver and obsidian. But above all, they gathered their dragons. For without them, what were the Targaryens but another family adrift? One by one, the beasts were harnessed, their wings spreading wide against the Valyrian sun. Imagine the thunder of those wings as the family lifted into the sky, carrying their past with them, leaving behind the glittering city that had been their home. They crossed the narrow sea to a place few envied, a rocky, wind-swept island called Dragonstone. Black cliffs rose from restless waters. Smoke and steam rose from vents in its mountains. The castle they built there was dark and brooding, carved from the very shape of dragons, its towers like spines, its halls like jaws. The journey had been long, the sea rough with storms, but they endured. They survived. And only a few years later, the reason for their flight revealed itself. Now imagine it, the doom itself. The day when the world shook and Valyria died. The earth groaned, deep and furious, as if some ancient god had awoken beneath the 14 flames. Mountains split apart with sounds like the snapping of colossal bones. Fire burst skyward, molten rock arcing across the heavens like rain reversed. Ash swallowed the air until no sun could pierce it. Rivers boiled, forests kindled in an instant. The sea itself rose in waves of steam, devouring ships and shores alike. Dragons wheeled in terror above the chaos, but even their vast wings could not outfly the fury of the earth. Some fell screaming, their bodies broken by storms of cinder. Others turned upon one another, panicked, their fire lost in fire greater still. Palaces of stone and glass, proud towers that had stood for centuries, cracked and toppled into the smoking sea. In one day, Valyria, the greatest power the world had ever known, ceased to exist. Its 1,000 roads led nowhere. Its council of dragon lords was silenced forever. Its wonders became whispers, its sorceries smothered in ash. Take a breath now, deep and slow. Inhale the weight of that silence. Exhale the knowledge that such greatness can vanish in a heartbeat. Imagine standing upon Dragonstone's black cliffs when the news reached them, when smoke on the horizon confirmed what Dennis had foreseen. The sound must have been strange, not the roar of fire, for they were too far to hear it, but the absence that followed. No messenger, no council, no city across the sea, just silence, heavy and absolute. The Valyrian Freehold was gone. The empire that had tamed dragons, forged steel that sang and stretched across continents was reduced to ruins. Its secrets buried in fire, its glory scattered to the winds. Of the 100 families who had ruled the Freehold, only one remained with dragons still their own, the Targaryens. At Dragonstone, they kept their vigil, guarding their beasts, tending their law, shaping their destiny in quiet exile. Their dragons lived, their bloodline endured, and in time they looked not eastward to the ashes of Valyria, but westward across the narrow sea to the green and quarrelsome kingdoms of Westeros. There lay fertile fields, proud lords, and thrones of men who had never known the fire of dragons. One day, Aegon Targaryen would rise. With his sisters, Visenya and Rhaenys, he would mount those dragons and cross the sea. He would burn castles, break kings, and from their ruin, forge one throne, one realm. The seven kingdoms would kneel before Dragonfire, and the Iron Throne itself would be hammered from the swords of the conquered. That is another tale, one we may follow another night. But remember this, none of it, the conquest, the Iron Throne, the dynasty of Dragon Kings, would have been possible without the doom, without Dany's dream, without the choice of one father to trust his daughter's vision. All of it traces back to Old Valyria, to fire that birthed both wonder and ruin, to a people consumed by their own might, and to one family who fled before the storm. Breathe deeply once more, and let that truth settle in you. From the ashes of a world destroyed, the seeds of another were sown. Now, dear dreamer, let us leave the smoke and shadows behind. Let the fires of Valyria cool to embers in your imagination. The city fades, its towers dissolving into mist. The roar of dragons softens into silence, replaced by the gentle rhythm of your breath. Take one last deep inhale. Hold it. Exhale slowly. Feel your body sinking deeper into comfort, as if the ashes of Valyria themselves have become soft sand beneath you, warm and gentle. You are safe. The story is complete for tonight. When you dream, perhaps dragons will soar above you, their shadows stretching across skies of fire. Or perhaps you will simply drift into a slumber as calm as the sea after a storm. Thank you for joining me here at Serene Slumber Tales. May your night be restful, your dreams vivid, and your heart at peace. Sleep well, traveler.